United States military just pulled off an operation so intense, we haven't seen anything like it since the Second World War.
United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation, and it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II.
After the extradition of a major Sinaloa boss, 50 casualties hit the ground, and a chilling message was delivered straight to the White House. Chapo Isidro is stepping out of the shadows to warn Trump that land strikes will have a massive price. It's not that simple, though, because this isn't just about substances anymore. It's about a precedent that has every cartel leader terrified. Hands down, this is the most dangerous moment in modern border history. The Sinaloa Storm. The United States Armed Forces recently conducted an extraordinary military operation, and it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II, after Mexico extradited the Sinaloa Plaza boss known as Kung Fu Panda. More than 50 people ended up dead. Now, the name of cartel leader Chapo Isidro is tied to a shocking execution threat aimed straight at Donald Trump. This extradition came only days after Trump openly warned that United States forces could begin striking cartels on Mexican soil. Within hours, cartel regions became unstable. Bodies began piling up, and a quiet shift inside Sinaloa exposed something far more dangerous than just simple retaliation. Since this all started a week and a half ago, it has left around 50 casualties and scenes of total destruction across Culiacan and the small villages surrounding it. This wasn't just about one arrest. It was about a precedent that cartel leaders believe puts them next on the list. This is why Chapo Isidro may have decided that the only way to stop it was to send a message directly to Washington. Many people remember when Trump said the United States had done almost everything it could at sea. The substance boats were being hit, and the routes were drying up. So, he said it was time to move the fight to the land. He claimed that substances by sea are down 97%. That is a massive number. He kept saying it in different interviews on different days, passing on the same message. The cartels were running Mexico, and something needed to be done about it. If Mexico couldn't stop them, the United States would. He openly stated that the cartels are running Mexico, whether people like it or not. He insisted that Mexico has to get its act together because the problem is pouring through the border, and the United States is going to have to do something. But here's the catch. What made that line different this time was when he said it just days after United States forces had gone into Venezuela and taken its president. Now, everyone knows there was no warning or buildup to that particular operation. The United States just went in and out in a matter of minutes. In total, more than 150 aircraft, including bombers, fighters, and surveillance planes, were in the air that night. Dramatic satellite images showed the damage caused on sites in Caracas during the strikes. Suddenly, Maduro was a prisoner of the United States and no longer a leader in his own right. He was taken into custody and held at a New York City detention center. That proved many things. One of which is that the previous narrative about Trump being all talk was totally wrong. So, when he started talking about land strikes, people didn't hesitate to take him seriously. They immediately started asking where he was planning to hit. It's not that simple, though, because in public, Mexico pushed back hard. The president said there would be no foreign troops or intervention on her land. She made it clear she would not gamble with her nation's sovereignty. But the mood behind the scenes was reportedly very different. It wasn't as if Mexico had descended into a state of chaos, but reports show there is an urgency in how they are now moving. Because if Trump was serious, Mexico had something to prove. They needed to show they still had control, and they needed to do it fast. But how do they plan to do that? And will it work to change Trump's mind? Yeah, about that. World leaders know that Trump controls one of the most powerful armies in the world. He has said it himself many times. That makes him dangerous, and everyone knows that, including the leaders in Mexico. So, they had no choice but to figure out a way to give him what he wanted. They wanted to keep him from doing to their leadership what he did to Maduro. The Justice Department went public with a message that sounded like it was meant specifically for Mexico. They said that thanks to leadership, the cartels are no longer free to import poison into American communities. That message was received loud and clear. The crazy part is that in one single move, Mexico handed over 37 cartel figures to the United States. These were men pulled from different cells, different cartels, and different regions, all put on the same path north. Video shared by authorities shows a line of handcuffed prisoners being loaded onto a military jet. According to them, these 37 were high-impact criminals, representing a real threat to security. Some were from the Sinaloa gang, and others were from the Jalisco New Generation cartel. But one of them stood out among the rest. His name was Roberto Najera Gutierrez, also known as Kung Fu Panda. Trump's land war. What most people don't realize is that Kung Fu Panda wasn't just a foot soldier. He moved massive amounts of narcotics across borders in boats from South America. He ran routes through Central America with loads that ended up in Atlanta, Chicago, Florida, New York, and California. When he landed in the United States, prosecutors called him a narco-terrorist. That word matters, because just weeks earlier, the Sinaloa cartel had been labeled a terrorist organization. That label makes things a whole lot easier for the government. It is a move that can actually make it politically easier for a president to send troops to Mexico without the approval of Congress. And this isn't even new. Mexico had already sent 92 cartel figures to the United States in less than a year. Every transfer came after the same pressure from Washington. They have extradited 29 fugitive members recently, including a notorious kingpin who spent 4 decades on the most wanted list. So, here's the deal. Kung Fu Panda wasn't taken in a raid. He was given up. To the cartels, that is the ultimate betrayal. And in the world of organized crime, betrayal is punished swiftly and violently. The question everyone is asking now is, who will the cartels make pay for this? When a powerful leader is taken, several things could happen. Another kingpin rises up, the organization crumbles, or the cartels retaliate with extreme violence. Mexico has seen this before. When the son of El Chapo was first taken, the country detonated in minutes. Gunmen poured into the streets, barricades went up, and vehicles were burned. Entire cities locked down in hours. It looked like a war zone. Basically, that moment taught every cartel leader the same lesson. An arrest could be reversed if the response was violent enough. But extraditions were different because once someone crossed the border, there was no getting them back. So, when cartel figures started being handed over quietly and legally, the reaction was brutal. Narco banners in Mexico began warning Americans that they would be targets of violence in towns controlled by the Sinaloa cartel. If the United States is allowed to request anyone they want, and Mexico just hands them over, the cartels lose all their power. It means their fates are out of their hands, and they can't manipulate the system anymore. And get this, the violence started almost immediately. Shots were fired at Border Patrol agents from the Mexican side. Agents had to take cover and return fire. Northern corridors that were already unstable became pressure points. A fierce gunfight followed, and while the Mexican army tried to intervene, several people lost their lives in the chaos. Authorities were left to investigate who gave the order for such brutality, but they had no idea that this was just the beginning. What is coming is much worse. As the investigation into the violence wrapped up, one man was found to be responsible, and he was no stranger to conflict. The Panda's betrayal. For more than a year, the Sinaloa cartel had been tearing itself apart. The sons of El Chapo have been hunted because their inner circle basically collapsed. Two factions of the same criminal group have been in open conflict. Both sides have private armies with gunmen who look just like professional soldiers. Between them, they are tearing up the city of Culiacan. Lieutenants have disappeared, some were eliminated, and others were captured. The cartel everyone thought was untouchable began breaking apart in front of everyone. Gunmen are calling it the worst violence in 15 years, in a city known as the cartel's epicenter. But here's the catch. One operation kept going while others lost ground. The organization run by Chapo Isidro had roots that stayed open. His labs kept producing synthetic narcotics, moving them north day after day, while the raids seemed to hit everyone except him. Even though the government got its hands on some of his products, his structure absorbed the damage and kept moving. That's why the United States talks about him like a problem that won't go away. His name climbed onto the most wanted list not because he was flashy, but because he survived every single cleanup effort. He has been in the game for a long time, watching from the shadows as he built his empire from the ashes of his rivals. What most people don't realize is that when Mexico began loading cartel figures onto planes, Isidro saw a major problem. If Mexico could give up a plaza boss today, they could give up anyone tomorrow. That meant the danger wasn't just rival gangs anymore. It was the idea that the state itself was now willing to trade leaders to stay alive. And that idea scared him more than any gunman ever could. Then the situation stopped being strategic, because something happened that hit very close to home. That is when he stopped just watching and started acting. Everyone's obsessed with the big names like El Chapo, but Chapo Isidro is the one who actually knows how to survive. Something happened just before he gave the order for the violence, and it was more than just the extradition of Kung Fu Panda. Once you know that, his threats to Trump suddenly make a lot of sense. Under pressure from the United States, Mexico has been applying similar pressure to Isidro's inner circle. Just in December of last year, Marines tracked one of his most trusted pillars to a small town. When the helicopters came in, the pillar opened fire, and the Navy fired back. Minutes later, he was gone. Isidro's hidden empire. They didn't stop there, though. Weeks after that, another man who officials called a narco-terror leader was arrested. These were the people who held territory for Isidro while he stayed invisible. They were wiped off the board in less than a month. Then came the extradition of Kung Fu Panda. Put together, the message was very clear. If the government was willing to eliminate one pillar, arrest another, and hand a boss to Washington, then Isidro knew he was being boxed in. And that is not something the cartels can allow. So, here's the deal. The cartels are now fighting for their very existence against a government that is more afraid of Trump than they are of the narcos. Trump's success in Venezuela sent a shockwave through the underworld. They realize that the old rules don't apply anymore. If a president can be snatched from his own palace, a cartel leader in a mountain hideout is not safe. Chapo Isidro's warning to Trump is a desperate attempt to draw a line in the sand. He wants the United States to know that if they keep pushing, the border will become a permanent war zone. The crazy part is that this might actually be working. The instability has caused the price of shipping to skyrocket, and the violence is spilling over into areas that used to be safe. People are wondering if this is all happening overnight, or if we are missing a key detail. The thing is, this has been building for years. The extradition of Kung Fu Panda was just the spark that lit the fuse. Now we are seeing the true power of Chapo Isidro as he tries to hold his empire together while the world's most powerful military watches from just a few miles away. Basically, we are in uncharted territory. Hands down, this is the most complex situation the border has ever faced. Trump is standing firm on his promise to stop the land routes, and Isidro is standing firm on his promise to retaliate. It is a standoff that could lead to a massive escalation. What most people don't realize is how much of this is a psychological game. Isidro needs to look strong to keep his remaining allies from flipping, and Trump needs to look strong to satisfy his voters. It's a perfect storm of ego and power. The crazy part is that we might be looking at the end of the traditional cartel structure. If the United States actually starts hitting targets on Mexican soil, the cartels will have to evolve or disappear. Chapo Isidro knows this. His warning wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration of war. He is telling the world that he is not going down without a fight. And that's putting it lightly. The violence we have seen so far is likely just a preview of what is to come if the extraditions continue. Could a direct military strike on cartels actually stop the violence? Or would it just make things 100 times worse? Tell us your thoughts below. Like and subscribe for more.